Welcome back to YellowCard Vanguard. I'm your host, Toku from It's Toku TV on Twitch. Throughout the week, I'm streaming Vanguard on my Twitch channel. We'll be building decks, playtesting, and just having a grand old time, so be sure to swing on by. With new clan collection reveals coming out every day, you know what that means. It's time for a new chapter of clan collection cores. I want to preface this video and the entirety of the series by saying that many of these lists are entirely conceptual and surface deep, and will need your own playtesting to fine-tune. But each of these will aim to provide a way of thinking on how to take your new support in Clan Collection 3 and 4 and put it into a working deck. They won't all be optimized, but I believe they will be a good baseline to build off of. Welcome to Clan Collection Cores. Among Us. Let's take a look at our new Amon friends. Our new leader of the Dark Irregular Demons, Demon World Marquis Amon. Once per turn, you can put a rear guard, a card from hand, and a card from drop into your soul, and your opponent has to do the same thing, but twice. So your opponent is going to put 2 rear guards into soul, 2 cards from hand into soul, and 2 cards from drop into soul. And if your opponent wasn't able to put 6 cards total, you gain a drive. As a rear guard, Amon gains 5k for every 6 cards in our soul, and as Vanguard, gains 10k instead. Finally, on the Vanguard circle, for every 6 cards in the opponent's soul, Amon gains a crit. Your soul, our soul. Amon is cool in the sense that there's no counterblast cost associated with him, and going first is a great ride, since we can use the act skill, and more likely than not in the early game, opponents won't have the rear guards or the drop zone to fulfill the 6 soul condition, so we'll get an easy drive check here. Most importantly, since they have to do as much as they can, we'll also get to delinquent duo them too. The new grade 2 is Amon's follower, Ron Jinlin. When placed on the van or the rear, soul charge 1. Then your opponent chooses up to 1 card from hand or rear guard and soul charges it. If they did not, you soul charge 1 more. Then, on the rearguard circle or the guardian circle, if your opponent's soul has 6 or more cards, Ron gains 10k power and 10k shield on both turns. At first, Ron seems underwhelming. On play, soul charge 1, maybe soul charge 2, but then you realize that Ron is the source of costless soul charge. We don't even have to be playing Amon. Even Charlotte would appreciate Ron's existence because of its costless soul charge ability. Now, there is the argument that, yes, some psychos would be happy to give you a card from hand into soul, for effects such as Luard's skill, checking for grade 3s into soul, but I think that's a sacrifice that has to be made to get counterblastless soul charge. And as they play into our abilities by offering more soul, we just get stronger as well, Amon getting the crit and Ron gaining permanent power. Finally, our last follower, the grade 1, Amon's follower, Fu Jinlin. Once per turn, on the Vanguard circle or the rearguard circle, you can soul a card from your hand and draw a card. Then, your opponent also chooses a card from their hand and puts it into soul and may draw a card. Then, on the rearguard circle, at the beginning of the battle phase, if your opponent has 6 or more cards in soul, we may soul charge 1, and if we did, we can buff one of your units 5k until the end of turn. Fu is also at first glance very medium, until once again you realize that he is costless soul charge every turn, and the opponent having to soul charge from hand is mandatory. I'm not sure how quickly we'll get the rearguard circle skill to go off, but maybe on the grade 3 ride, in which case getting a free soul charge every turn is very good as well. In a Charlotte list, this 5k buff gets doubly used so due to Charlotte's front row restand as well. So with the new cards introduced, let's take a look at the list that is being introduced to you right now. Presenting Amon Gas Turbo, featuring Hope on Dom. The goal of our deck is to hit 20 soul as fast as we can. This turns on our payoff win cons in Hope on Dom and Gastille. Using Gastille's 4 skills in conjunction with Hope on Dom is back-breaking and probably game-winning. Turning Hope on Dom on for the turn and getting an attack to over 21,000 power forces your opponent to guard it with 40,000, which is so inefficient. To get to that 20 soul, we're going to be playing the Amon engine as well as Number of Terror to help us farm some hand to guard attacks and stave off our opponent's attempts as we play towards our 20 soul win con. Now, unlike most lists where your win con should be ran at high counts, we instead choose to run thin amounts of both, 3 copies of Hope on Dump and 2 copies of Castile respectively. These cards would then theoretically be our silver bullets that we would keep close to our chest, waiting for the perfect time to slam them down and crank our opponent out of the game. To ensure that we find said pieces ASAP before they get accidentally soul charged, we're going to run 4 copies of Alluring Succubus and 4 copies of Succubus of Pure Love. Both very strong grade 1s that double dip onto the same effect, and that is to find our grade 3s, namely Hope on Domp and Gastille. Alluring Succubus, having the benefit of also having her effect to be an on-act skill, means that it can be a card that we commit to the field very early and try to get value out of it through attacks and boosting. Then once we're done with her, convert her off into our grade 3s once we have the counterblast for it. Apart from the 2 Gastilles and the 3 Hope on Damps, everything else in our deck is gas. Starting with the Amon engine, we're going to run 4 copies of Fu Jinlin and 4 copies of Ron Jinlin. Both cards that soul charge us for free, and even now people should be wary of giving DI that grade 2 counterblast, because we're running a full playset of Demonted Executioner. The target of most of our counterblasts in this deck will be for Demonted to soul charge 3, which comes with a bonus draw if we're lucky. Most times we ride though, I think we look to ride into Ron Jinlin and keep Demonted in the clutch for when we need to immediately convert that counterblast to soul. Then, as we enter our grade 3 line, we are running 4 copies of Amon the Marquis himself. He's our grade 3 ride target, he's our turn 3 delinquent duo, he gains that bonus drive and farms some hand and soul. Now, Amon may read -1 from field, -1 from hand, -1 from drop, but when we're trying to turbo to 20 soul, Amon reads Soul Charge 3. And finally, my favorite card in all of Dark Irregulars, Pot of Terror. Number of Terror. Number of Terror is how we farm our hand to get to Gastille and Hope on Domp safely. Number of Terror is how we out-advantage our opponent. Number of Terror is just so freaking good. With the current deck as well, with the Amon engine, if we're able to get that counterblast from Demonted, we can Number of Terror on turn 1. Riding into Fu Jinlin and using a skill gets us 2 soul to play with. Riding into either Ron or Executioner and calling the other lands us at 6 to 5 soul. Then finally riding into Amon, resolving its skill gets us another 3 soul, landing us on at least 10 I believe, and now turning on all Number of Terrors on turn 3. That's freaking wild. Finally, our trigger lineup is the Sharot trigger lineup, which I'm not 100% sure of. Definitely talk to Noto for his thoughts on the deck. But this is the trigger lineup that I ran in Sharot when I also cheesed with Gastille WinCon. Having the 2 extra crits to push them to 5 earlier means that riding Gastille will be that sure kill on 20 soul. And in this deck, sometimes just having that crit to push them to 3 can be a sure kill when you combo Gastille with Hope on Domp. Now, what other options can you? Truthfully speaking, you have to find an alternate WinCon to play with besides Amon. Amon himself cannot be the focus of your deck, more so a transition piece. Sharot works fine with Amon, using it in a way to build up soul on the first ride, or even just as a really large restander beater, coupled with Ron and Fu Jinlin, which solve the deck's issue of being counterblast denied. Honestly, just play Amon alongside any big soul count payoff and he'll work out. Hope on Domp, Master of Elements, and OK is also something to explore. The existence of Ron and Fu helped the clan so much. The way I see it, Amon and Friends is your new Soul Charge engine, and I'm all for it. In any case, this has been it from me for this episode of Clan Collection Course. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Like the video as it helps motivate us to keep the gears going, and leave a comment down below. Every little bit helps the channel. This has been Toku from the YellowCard Vanguard channel. Toku out.